moments in history, and there's a throwbackness to the hallway, which is what the beauty of it is, right? And you can see out to the garden that often the First Lady sits in. You can see out to the White House lawn, and the beauty of the White House is the historic nature of it.
Yeah, see, Glenn Youngkin was elected. Jen Psaki wasn't elected. She was selected, right, as White House press secretary, and now she's out there on Twitter attacking Republican governors on their first day, mind you. Elections have consequences, Griff, and Glenn Youngkin won despite Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and every Democratic heavy hitter coming to campaign for.
The storm began when media commentator Joe Concha decided he'd finally had enough of political spin being served like reheated leftovers. Known for his sharp humor and zero-nonsense takes, Concha has made a career out of calling out hypocrisy. But this time, he didn't just comment, he detonated. His target was Jen Psaki, the celebrated queen of calm deflection.
It's this tweet from White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. Hi there, Arlington County parent here. Thank you to Arlington Public Schools for standing up for our kids, teachers, and administrators and their safety in the midst of a transmissible variant. Joe, why is the White House Press Secretary attacking a new...
Famous for turning tough questions into smooth political poetry. Yet one recent remark of hers, meant to sound clever and confident, landed like a tone-deaf car alarm. Before the internet could fully digest the gaffe, Concha jumped in, shredding her words with surgical precision and a sense of comic timing that made the whole affair feel less like journalism and more like a roast at a courtroom drama. Psaki's comment, already linked,
for whatever reason, is exempt from this rule during those press briefings. And look, everybody's socially distanced in that room now, and for whatever reason, she is above that law in that room, and all the other reporters that are in there, who most are not speaking most of the time, are masked up. I wonder why that is, why it's rules for Jen and not for...
Lingering online like bad perfume was supposed to be bold. Instead, it came across as smug and self-righteous. A verbal misfire so glaring that even her defenders winced. Concha saw his opening. Abandoning any pretense of polite media sparring, he went full prosecutor, turning his critique into a public indictment. Each sentence he delivered sounded like cross-examination. His tone was part stand-up comic, part seasoned lawyer.
On schools in Virginia, 7 districts representing 350,000 students are suing the state. They're hoping to get a strict mask mandate for students that has been rolled back by the new governor reinstated. So who does the president think knows best for students? School board members or parents?
Well, the president believes that public health officials have the best guidance on what we can all do to protect ourselves, including teachers, administrators, and students. It's always been up to local school districts to determine how they're going to approach what implementation measures they're going to put.
Each jab landing with both laughter and logic. For once, cable news chaos had coherence, and Concha's precision made it impossible to look away. Psaki, ever the seasoned communicator, wore her trademark expression of controlled surprise. The one that suggests she's both baffled and calculated.
But this is unintentionally hilarious on 2 levels, guys. She is applying the Homer Simpson rule, which is, drinking is the cause of and solution to all of life's problems. That's one. And B, margarita, right, is the type of drink the elite, besides Will and me, of course, like Jen Psaki, have when downing their sorrows. And oh, by the way, it's funny that the White House says, hey, take the weekend off and we'll go fight again on Monday, because that kind of fits the mold, right? Because they don't really work on weekends, it seems. By the way, it's freezing throughout many parts of the country. So who's drinking margaritas right now in this weather, honestly? Except for me, of course, apparently.
Her next spin. But this time, no amount of composure could cover the sting. What made Concha's takedown so devastating wasn't just the humor. It was the truth wrapped in wit. He didn't twist Psaki's words. He replayed them slowly, letting the absurdity speak for itself. As he dissected her logic, the audience could feel the collective "finally" from viewers exhausted by political doublespeak. Social media exploded within hours, hashtags trending, memes multiplying, clips replayed on loop. It was a cultural feeding frenzy, the kind of digital storm where outrage, amusement, and schadenfreude blend into one unstoppable wave. Concha hadn't just criticized a public figure. He had orchestrated a masterclass in rhetorical demolition. Psaki's camp scrambled to regain footing. Emergency PR meetings were likely called, armed with buzzwords like context and reframing the narrative. But as anyone in the age of viral media knows,
in light of the disastrous last 4 days for the White House, where do they coming off thinking this is the proper approach?
Well, first, in the slot you just played, that soundbite, Todd, the White House press secretary lied again, which must mean we're on a day of the week ending. And why? This time about the president taking, quote, multiple times a week, unquote. This simply is not true. If you could show me transcripts of Joe Biden taking questions from the press 3, 4, 5 times a week, boy, I'd love to see that.
Once a story hits the meme cycle, control is an illusion. Her defenders insisted Concha had taken her out of context, yet each replay of her own words dismantled that excuse further. Context couldn't save comments that collapsed under their own arrogance. In this digital courtroom, the jury wasn't bound by procedure. It was made up of everyday viewers, armed with Wi-Fi and short attention spans, but an unerring sense for hypocrisy. Concha's attack was entertaining, yes, but it also struck a deeper chord. He exposed how insulated political messaging had become, how some public figures mistake polished spin for truth. His performance blurred the line between journalism and satire, showing that clarity, when paired with humor, can be more powerful than any headline. He became the voice of the collective eye roll, the audience that had grown tired of being talked down to. Psaki, on the other hand, became an unwilling symbol of everything wrong with overmanaged political communication, smooth, evasive, and occasionally disastrous. The more Psaki tried to clarify her remarks, the worse it got. Each clarification poured gasoline on the fire. Her attempts to sound thoughtful only highlighted the disconnect between message and meaning. Concha, sensing the unraveling, stayed calm and relentless.
Democrats now risk being the anti-parent party, right, when it comes to these things. And look, the mask mandate, this drives me crazy because it's not reported correctly or it's buried in paragraph 12. What Glenn Youngkin is doing isn't saying, all right, all kids, you must take your mask off, and all parents, you must obey and not put your kids in masks. The law that he is pushing here is to give parents choice, what he ran on. If you want to put your kid in a mask, go ahead, that's fine. If you don't want to, you have the right to do that, and you can't be told to do that. Boy, go figure, giving parents the option to do what they want to with their kids. And by the way, the data, Griff, I'll leave it here, the data over and over again shows that masks in schools, whether you're wearing them or doesn't wear them, has no real impact on transmissibility that Jen Psaki was talking about.
Delivering rebuttals with a grin that said he knew exactly how deep the cut went. Online commentators compared him to a detective watching a suspect confess on live TV. Every moment felt choreographed, yet spontaneous, a perfect blend of outrage and entertainment. Meanwhile, the internet crowned Concha the unlikely hero of common sense. Even viewers who normally disagreed with him admitted the takedown was artful. His style wasn't mean-spirited. It was exasperated truth delivered with flair. In an era where every debate feels pre-scripted, Concha's unscripted honesty hit like fresh air. Psaki's carefully constructed brand of calm expertise suddenly looked fragile. Her reputation as the unflappable communicator began to wobble under the weight of her own words. The chaos evolved into spectacle. Late-night comedians picked up the story, but even they couldn't top the original performance. Concha had already framed it perfectly. Part roast, part revelation.
Doesn't exist. Look, she also said that the president had a full schedule on Monday during that press briefing. That day began with him coming back from Delaware after 8 o'clock in the morning to the White House, and the day ended at 1:30 p.m. after a lunch with the vice president when he sat down with his COVID team. 1:30 p.m. If you look at his schedule, that's when the public events ended. Does that sound full to you? But that line, it depends on what you ask, is patently patronizing from Jen Psaki, who is particularly accomplished in talking down to reporters this way more and more.
Commentators dubbed it journalistic theater, a reminder that truth still cuts through when delivered with the right mix of humor and conviction. The episode became less about who was right and more about what it represented, the growing public fatigue with polished evasions. Psaki's misstep symbolized how detached political talk can sound from everyday logic. Concha simply held up the mirror. Behind the humor, though, lay something serious. Concha hinted half-jokingly that Psaki's remarks could even brush against defamation territory, enough to make the word lawsuit echo online. Whether or not any legal weight existed didn't matter. The idea alone turned the scandal from a media spat into a cultural event. The public reveled in the irony. A professional spokesperson, master of...
The little Manchurian candidate, J.D. Vance, wants to be president more than anything else.
Yeah.
I always wonder what's going on in the mind of his wife. Like, are you okay? Please blink 4 times.
Yes.
We'll come over here. We'll save you. And that he's willing to do anything to get there. And that your whole iteration you just outlined, I mean, he's scarier in certain ways.
He's smarter.
In some ways. And he's young.
Yeah. And ambitious.
And agile in the sense that
message
he
control
is
being undone by her own message. It wasn't about left versus right anymore. It was about watching a pro spinner lose control of the spin. As days passed, the fallout spread like wildfire through political and media circles. Psaki's colleagues defended her, but the damage was already viral. Each replay of Concha's commentary reminded audiences not only of her gaffe, but also of his fearless wit. He had transformed critique into performance art, and the internet rewarded him for it. Viewers didn't just watch, they participated, remixing clips, captioning screenshots, and turning the moment into a living meme. The scandal became legend, a shorthand for overconfidence colliding with accountability. By the time the next news cycle rolled in, Psaki tried to move on, but the shadow lingered. Every new appearance invited flashbacks to the roast that had defined the week. Her calm tone, once
cannot be asked, likely include, here's what I would ask anyway, why is adding trillions of dollars in new spending a cure for rising inflation? Let's see, what are you going to do to reduce skyrocketing violent crime? 16 cities have now set homicides records this year, sir. Or I would say maybe, this would probably be my leading question, more than 2 million people have crossed into the U.S. illegally this year. Record amounts of fentanyl have also come across. Fentanyl overdoses, sir, are now the leading cause of death for those 18 to 45 years old in this country, yet you will never talk about fixing the border or addressing the fentanyl crisis. Why is that? So I guess it depends on what you ask. Probably won't include questions like that because he can't answer those questions because there are no good answers.
And to put a bow on this,
admired, now reminded audiences of the viral fiasco. Concha, meanwhile, emerged as the cool-headed truth-teller, a rare figure who managed to turn moral clarity into mass entertainment. His critique wasn't cruelty. It was catharsis for viewers tired of spin. The entire saga revealed the new laws of the media jungle. In an age of viral journalism, every word can self-implode. Spin has limits, and arrogance carries a shelf life. Psaki's stumble and Concha's reaction became a parable of the modern information war, how truth, humor, and timing can dethrone even the most polished communicator. Somewhere, a rookie press aide probably scribbled a reminder on a sticky note, never pull a Psaki. In the end, the story transcended politics. It became a morality play about the power of authenticity. Psaki
Continue her very public psychiatric therapy tour nearly, what are we at now, 8 years after she was defeated in an election that basically every pundit says was impossible to lose. She's still not over it. And there she is on national television last night with Rachel Maddow, who gets paid $30 million to work one night a week. Boy, can we get that contract? Saying the press needs to create a consistent narrative about how dangerous Trump is. I mean, that's an actual quote. Another one, he is a danger to our country and the world. 24 hours after Donald Trump is nearly assassinated again, and this is what NBC, MSNBC...
Psaki's mistake was believing eloquence could outshine sincerity. Concha proved otherwise. His roast wasn't just funny, it was a warning that audiences today crave honesty over perfection. Watching Psaki's composure crack was like seeing the facade of modern spin crumble in real time. The laughter that followed wasn't just mockery, it was relief. As the curtain fell on this viral drama, the message was unmistakable. Words matter, spin expires, and public confidence is fragile. Psaki may recover, political veterans always do, but her credibility now bears the scar of that moment. Joe Concha, microphone in hand, reminded the world that in the court of public opinion, truth still knows how to fight back. And in a media landscape drowning in rehearsed narratives, that kind of chaos.
And really, lastly, Joe, why would she weigh in when we just watched Glenn Youngkin get elected? Primarily because he gave voice to parents in schools, whether it was CRT or the mask mandate, which the governor's now fighting. She could have just not weighed in at all, even though she is a parent, and doubled down on what cost, many believe, Terry McAuliffe the election.
Precisely, right? Terry McAuliffe, when I talked about Democratic heavy hitters coming in to campaign for him, that included Randy Weingarten on the final night of the campaign. She is the head of the largest team.
Isn't just entertaining, it's poetic justice.